we've been hearing from people all over the country since last night and this morning. Seems like people have a spring in their steps because the president was held accountable for his reckless behavior. No one is above the law, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. No one is above the law, and the president has been held accountable. It really is interesting to see the response that we are getting, bipartisan, across party lines. I myself want to say I have a spring in my step because of the moral courage of our caucus.
A spring in her step, she says, because the president has been held accountable. But has he really? I think this is a fun part to dig into for a moment here. How exactly is it? The president's still the president. Nothing has changed. Democrats all just cast a vote to say that they hate the president. I mean, they can call it whatever they want, but when no one except for Democrats in the House of Representatives vote against the sitting president who is a Republican, guess what? It's just a partisan swipe. Nobody really cares. Doesn't matter. It doesn't make a dent. Doesn't make a difference. But it's also not even clear that he has been impeached yet because Pelosi is playing games. And we will see, by the way. I'm going to hold my man Jesse Kelly to that stake because we shall see. I mean, if she ends up withholding this the whole time, that would be stunning, fascinating, and I think crazy all at the same time. But you never know with Pelosi. She says they've got a spring in their step. Pelosi and Schumer are both engaged in all kinds of efforts to make this seem like whatever they want to make it seem like. Here's Senator Mitch McConnell, who is pointing out that she can do all the spinning that she wants. She can do all of the narrative creation and reforming. But there's a fundamental problem here is that she's just negating much of what she was saying for the last few weeks. Play 12.
Speaker Pelosi said this: impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there is something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country. End quote. By the Speaker's own standards, the standards she set. She's failed the country.
Does anyone really think that this was bipartisan? That is the standard the Democrats had set up in the past. Does anyone really believe? Does anyone really think that what's going on here is anything other than a one-party lashing out against the President of the United States? I would love to see that person out there making the case publicly that this is bipartisan, that this is not just Democrats acting as one against the duly elected President of the United States, Donald John Trump. Interesting. You never really hear people say the John part in the middle. Recently someone said it, and I was like, oh, wow. Why are you looking at me like, why are you looking like I'm crazy? It's always Donald J. Trump.
I'm going to admit something.
What?
Had no idea what the J stood for.
Really?
I had no clue until you just
You
said
know
it.
what, man? I'm going to say this. I bet a lot of people think that. I mean, or we're in that situation, yeah.
Because why would
I know
Donald
that?
J? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's like, hey, I'm gonna lay my cards on the table right now, producer Mark. Michael J. Fox, great actor from the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't know what that J stands for.
No
could
clue.
Be John, could be James, could be Jebediah.
Yeah.
I got no idea. I just knew it was Michael J. Fox.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so people know Donald John Trump. Usually I feel like you would have the shorter name as the first name. That just feels like it makes more sense to me.
Doesn't John Donald Trump seem weird, though?
John Donald Trump?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
I guess now that we know him as Donald.
Now he's the Donald, of course. But yeah, he's that is in fact his name. Remember when Barack Hussein Obama was president? If you said his full name, people had a problem with that sometimes. They'd be like, why are you doing that? Why are you saying his full name? Why you got to do that? And I was like, it's his name. Barack Hussein Obama. That was his name. And they can act like you're not supposed to say it as much as they want, but the fact of the matter is that you're just saying the guy's name. So, and look, I'm not one to make fun of names. I get made fun of all the time for it. I always think it's so funny, though, because people love to do the whole Sexton. Oh, sexy. Well, I will tell you a fun story. I was at a holiday party last night for some young Republicans, and it was a young Republican club. I'm at a holiday party, and someone came up to me, a nice young lady, and she said, I got to tell you something. I said, what? She said, well, my grandma loves your radio show and loves you on TV. And I said, "Oh wow, that's so nice." I legitimately do appreciate that because I'm in New York. I'm surrounded by commies and enemies, and so whenever someone comes up to me and has something nice to say, it like makes my day, it makes me feel appreciated, and it really is nice. I do like it. So by the way, anytime anyone from Team Buck, you see me anywhere, don't ever be shy. Like, come up, say hi. I'm always happy to talk to you. Always happy to speak with a member. I don't really mean that, member of the team. And I know right away because the people that know me from radio, they know that they kind of already know me, so they can just come up and talk to me. People that maybe saw me sometime on TV, they kind of like look at me a little weird, and they're like, "Wait a second, he's got a beard now. Is it the same guy?" But anyway, the nice young lady last night, and I think she's like 5 years younger than me. I'm calling her a young lady. Like, "Oh, the young lady last night that I saw." Well, the nice young lady came up and she said her grandma really liked me, and she said my grandma has a nickname for you, and you know what the nickname is, Producer Brandon? Extra points, you can guess this one.
I really hope you did that by accident.
What?
You just called me Producer Brandon.
Oh my God! It's so late in the season. I'm sorry, I did do that by
I'm
accident.
like double the size of Producer Brandon.
He does not,
too.
him and Producer Brandon are not
nothing alike. He's got tattoos. Like,
but for a whole 2 weeks, because you left me behind in the trenches taking grenades here in the Freedom Hut. You know, I had to say Brandon a lot every day. You know, now I've had to set the engines back to neutral, recuperate.
You act like I made you do the show outside in the middle of winter.
Might as well have. All right, the producer Mark security blanket was yanked off. Anyway. But what I was going to say,
nickname.
The nickname. What do you think?
Butt sex.
Buck Sexy.
Okay.
Buck Sexy. That's what Grandma Ethel in the Midwest calls me to her granddaughter, who came up to me and explained that they call me Buck Sexy. I got to tell you, I was like, hey.
Huh.
I was like, Grandma Ethel. I mean, is Grandpa Ethel still in the game, or are they still married? I'm just kidding. I kid.
My God. That is not where I expected you to go with that.
I'm kidding. It's Christmas time. I'm kidding.
I would like to point out, though, I just teased your birthday podcast with my guests.
Really?
I did.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So listen to that next week.
I will have to. I will have to check that out for sure. So anyway, Buck Sexy was my. I've had other people say it was Buck Sexington, and then what was one of the other ones? There was a really fun one for one of my listeners who used to listen all that. I haven't heard from him in a while, which I don't know why that is, but he said his wife, English wasn't her first language, and she had a hilarious nickname for me that was just my name, but it was the wrong version of my name. Anyway, Sexton, for those who don't know, a sexton, even though it sounds like ooh, is actually the person who takes care of a church. It's the person who collects, it's the lay person who works in a church who collects alms, who collects offerings, and also is often the grave digger. So perhaps Sexton, or Buck Gravedigger is another way of thinking about it. So it's the guy who digs the grave. And then there was that thing, I don't know if that's true or not, where they used to say that they would have a little bell that they would tie to the toe of a person so that if do you know what I'm talking about? When they used to put people in the grave in the medieval times, they were scared they were going to bury somebody alive.
Yeah, they put a little bell on them.
Right? That's a thing.
Or maybe like a tube down there.
Yeah, so like the sexton would have been the guy that if the bell rang, you got to run out there and obviously dig that person out from the grave.
How terrifying of an experience would that have to be?
I mean, that would be rough stuff.
Yeah,
I did see an advertisement for a show that I want to. It's got I don't know how else to say it, the super handsome Superman guy. You know what I'm talking about? I don't remember his name. The most recent one.
The most recent Superman.
Yeah, most recent Superman
terrible.
guy.
I don't remember. His
he's
name.
in some show. The Witcher. It's called The Witcher, I believe. Anyway,
there's so many shows. I mean,
there's two. The problem is there's so many shows I can't even keep up with all the shows these days.
There's so many I want to watch, but I know I'm never going to get to them.
Yeah, I know. I actually have a list now, and I have gotten through none of it because I'm trying to do this show.
But
I'm
then
writing
there's
the book.
the shows you want to watch again because they were so good. You just want to
the problem is I end up just wanting to turn my brain off, and I throw The Office on all the time.
Yeah, I'll throw The Office on. Scrubs is a big one for me. Seinfeld.
Scrubs. Is Scrubs really of that?
Scrubs is amazing.
Of that caliber?
Oh, it's so good.
Interesting.
It's very underrated by most people, but people have said it's the best medical show ever.
Really?
It's most realistic and it's hilarious.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
I was unaware of that. Oh, we were talking about impeachment and Pelosi and stuff. Let's get back to that.
They said impeachment was so urgent that it could not even wait for due process, but now they're content to sit on their hands. This is really comical. Democrats' own actions concede that their allegations are unproven.
Anyone want to try to argue that point against Cocaine Mitch? He knows what's up. He understands what's going on here. I mean, the good thing is, Mitch McConnell, I know he's establishment, and people have even called him a rhino. Let's give credit where it's due. Mitch McConnell held the line on Merrick Garland, and it was a brilliant parliamentary maneuver. He was absolutely right. It was a gamble. It paid off. Trump won. That's a big deal, and Democrats are still seething about it, which makes it even more amazing. Mitch McConnell is a mean, lean, conservative judicial confirmation machine, which will remake the judiciary for decades to come. Mitch McConnell's doing a fantastic job in that regard. I mean, is he good on immigration? Not really. Are there some other issues where Mitch and I would, have an sure. But overall, Mitch McConnell is a very adept and powerful Senate Majority Leader and has done a lot of good things. You will not be I'm going to say this now, and I know this doesn't excite the conservative base, and people like to call Mitch McConnell a rhino and all that stuff. And I'm not negating any of the places where I think he's come up short or he hasn't, he's obviously, but he's made amends. Trump and McConnell have a working relationship. I don't think that's, but when you look at the record, the judicial confirmation record, while Mitch McConnell has been Senate Majority Leader, it'll probably be the single best period for those who believe in the Constitution and a judiciary that really does uphold and defend the Constitution. It'll be the best period, perhaps ever. I mean, certainly in modern times for judicial confirmation. Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority. And that's nothing, you can't take that away from him. And also, by the way, you can't take away from people that supported Trump largely because they understood how important judges were, not just for this presidential term and the possible next term of Trump, which I think is looking very likely, but also for decades to come because these are lifetime appointments. It's a lifetime appointment on the federal bench, the appeals court, and the Supreme Court. They need to stay around for as long as they want until they decide to retire or until, they time to go. So I do think that's noteworthy here in this whole process. You are going to have to hear a lot of Chuck Schumer just saying things that he knows to be untrue, but again, he assumes that much of the left-wing base is full of idiots, so that's not going to change anything. Play clip 7, if you would, producer Mark.
If the Republicans proceed with the majority leader's scheme to sweep these charges under the rug and permit the president to ignore Congress, they will be creating a new precedent that will long be remembered as one of the Senate's darkest chapters.
The majority leader's scheme to sweep these charges under the rug. What is the scheme exactly? He doesn't even know. They haven't even agreed. They haven't even set anything up yet. But this is what the Democrats do when they're concerned that a process will not give the outcome that they want. They, in advance, undermine that process to hedge their bets. Because they'll say, all along we told you that the fix was in here. All along we told you that this is the way. They're already doing this, by the way, with the 2020 election and Russia interference, Ukraine interference, all this stuff. They're already trying to say that the next election is probably already under assault by outside forces. So if they lose, the childishness of the Democratic Party will come out once again. You'll see it, and they'll just say, we don't accept the result. We think that this was the way. This is what happened because of all of the cheating. Senator Lindsey Graham had an interesting point here about Jim Clyburn and what was said to him. I want to share this. Lindsey Graham has been pretty good on this issue in particular. I like Lindsey Graham. When Lindsey Graham's in fight mode, I like it. Here's what he said on clip 10, if you would, producer Mark. Not to be confused with
Jim Clyburn, a very good friend, a good man, just said moments ago, if it were up to him, they would never send the articles of impeachment to the Senate. That tells me that they're embarrassed by what they did, that the product that they generated in the House is not worthy of coming to the Senate. We know how this ends in the Senate.
Maybe we'll see. Well, we'll definitely see, but maybe I'm off on this. If they don't, I just don't see how they can avoid sending the impeachment to the Senate and then pretend that they've really impeached the president. That's absurd, right? Can you imagine if the Republicans had tried this after they impeached Clinton and then said, oh, we're not, because we don't have the votes, we're not going to go through the rest of the process. because it is all about the optics. It is all about the perception of this. It really has nothing to do with what is constitutional, what is fair. That's not what's motivating the people involved in any of this. Senator Lindsey Graham has pointed out that they want Mitch McConnell to do things based on their whim in the House. That's not how this works. They don't get to hold the process hostage until they can predetermine what the outcome of the process will be. But that seems to be the Democrat claim here. Play clip 9, producer Mark, please. Clip 9.
He's puzzled, and I've tried the best I could to explain it, and I'm a bit puzzled too. I don't know who came up with the idea, let's hold the articles back until Mitch McConnell does things that we like in terms of the trial. Let's hold the articles back maybe forever. That's constitutional extortion. That just cannot stand.
You know, at what point is this just Democrats doing what they've done in other places where to prevent legislative business, they'll do a sit-in in the Capitol. You know, they'll shut the building down. I mean, at what point is this just obstruction of the process? Oh, Democrats love to talk about obstruction. But aren't they now obstructing constitutional duties that the Senate has to now follow through? Do we even have a ruling on whether this is an impeachment or not? It seems like it's an open question. And it's only an open question because everybody would have assumed that once you hold the vote, of course, then you pass it to the Senate. There's not this delay procedure here. But it then just goes to how the whole thing has been a scam and a sham all along. Nancy Pelosi knows that these are incredibly weak articles of impeachment, that no Trump supporter is going to look at this and say, oh, wow, I guess now finally, after all the stuff they've said about the president, I'm going to back away from this. I want nothing to do with this. No one's going to take that approach. So what really is the purpose here? What is she trying to accomplish? The stain of impeachment on the Trump presidency, and which I think is greatly overstated. I don't think people really care. I mean, I'd put this to you. Do you think that Bill Clinton might have won a third term if he had run? It'd be an interesting question to look at now. If he had run against George W. Bush, I mean, who knows? Certainly, Bill Clinton is a more compelling persona than Al Gore. Bill Clinton's obviously got a whole bunch of massive skeletons in his closet the media was covering up for him for a long time on, but we will have to find out, I suppose. But just when you thought that this was finally going to return to some realm of normalcy, the Senate would be able to look at this, they would vote, and then we'd be able to stop talking about this whole impeachment proceeding, this impeachment process. It looks like Democrats have found a way to make this even crazier because Trump has made them lose their minds. That much is for sure. Hey, team, I just wanted to note that I think it was yesterday I was musing out loud to you, as I tend to do here on the show, that if the election were held today, because it was yesterday, that I'm entirely confident that Trump would win, which is pretty remarkable considering that he just got impeached. Or did he get impeached? Probably, sort of. We're still figuring this out. They voted to impeach him in the House, that's for sure. And you've had the Democrats making their case in all these different debates and getting all the media coverage they do for months and months without one person taking the full brunt of Trump's criticisms. And here we are now looking at the latest polling from CNN. And I would just note that, I know some pollsters and some polls are a little bit skewed, but Fox polls aren't polls of people who watch Fox News. And CNN polls aren't polls of people who watch CNN. I mean, at least they're not supposed to be. So I always think that's funny when they hear like an MSNBC, NBC News poll, and they assume it's like, well, are we asking all the libs? It's like, no, it's supposed to be more than that. Trump, this is head-to-head in battleground states. Trump, and it was all 8 states that were determined by less than 6% of the vote last time. So essentially the 8 states that will matter, according to last election for the upcoming election. And here's what they found. Trump, 49, Bernie, 45. Trump 47, Biden 47, Trump 48, Warren 46, Trump 48, Buttigieg 43. He beats everybody except for Biden, whom he's tied with. And remember that this is before Trump has been able to really weigh in and go after Biden, debate him, make the case against Biden specifically. And what you see is that Biden is effectively just taking the Hillary machinery from 2016 goes right behind Biden. And Biden, though, to be fair, he may have a bit of an advantage over Hillary in that he is less scandal-plagued than she is. That doesn't mean he's not scandal-plagued. It just means he is less scandal-plagued than she is at this point, although that could change. And also, he is associated with Obama because he was his vice president for 8 years, and so the African-American community seems to be more thoroughly and more energized in its support of Biden than it would have been, than it is rather in its support for other candidates, including Hillary Clinton. So, but that's how it breaks down right now. So they're impeaching a president who would probably be president again tomorrow if the election, overwhelming favorite if the election were held tomorrow to be president again. So whenever they talk about how they need to, do the bidding of the American people here, and this is all about what's constitutional, and this is about what the people want. No, it is not. This whole impeachment sham and all the stuff they're doing against President Trump, this is about what the left-wing base, the media, the federal bureaucracy, the academy, college campuses and universities, Hollywood, it's what they want. And you know who even has some understanding of this? I give him some credit. Because I always want to be, I have to be honest with all of you. I couldn't do a show that wasn't rooted in honesty day in and day out. It would feel too much like a multiple personality disorder. So I try to give credit where it's due, even among Democrats. Andrew Yang has some very bad ideas. Universal basic income is never what they say it will be, because what happens is once you give people universal basic income, then what do you think comes after that? Oh, it needs to be more. It needs to be more. You need to raise taxes. It needs to be more. It's just another mechanism for the redistribution of wealth. The only benefit is that there's not as much of a bureaucracy to administer it. But trust me, they could find a way. The federal government could find a way to have a lot of people who are in charge of taking the money that has been taken from you, taxpayer, and given to other people. In this case, given to everybody, which is an interesting addition to the plan here. Everybody's going to be getting $1,000 a month. It wouldn't be means tested. I mean, this just seems so very strange in that regard. But the number will never be. You'll always have 51% of the population that's saying, well, the universal basic income should be higher. Give me more money. Give me more money. And I don't think Andrew Yang really has an answer for that. That's one of the many criticisms of UBI. But he does understand that the left-wing base has radicalized, has gone pretty crazy. And the media in particular has become a dishonest organism. And here's what he says about the lies or the misdirections of the media. He said this last night in the debate. Play 19, please.
It's clear why Americans can't agree on impeachment. We're getting our news from different sources, and it's making it hard for us even to agree on basic facts. Congressional approval rating, last I checked, was something like 17%, and Americans don't trust the media networks to tell them the truth. The media networks didn't do us any favors by missing the reason why Donald Trump became our president in the first place. If you turn on cable network news today, you would think he's our president because of some combination of Russia, racism, Facebook, Hillary Clinton, and emails all mixed together. But Americans around the country know different. We blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs that were primarily based in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri. I just left Iowa. We blasted 40,000 manufacturing jobs there. The more we act like Donald Trump is the cause of all of our problems, the more Americans lose trust that we can actually see what's going on in our communities and solve those problems. What we have to do is we have to stop being obsessed over impeachment, which unfortunately strikes many Americans like a ball game where you know what the score is going to be, and start actually digging in and solving the problems that got Donald Trump elected in the first place. We have to take every opportunity to present a new positive vision for the country, a new way forward to help beat him in 2020 because make no mistake, he'll be there at the ballot box for us to defeat.
There's some truth in what Yang is saying. He's certainly going to be there at the ballot box. Trump is going to be very much running in the fall. That's despite what Democrats have been praying for, not praying, but whatever they do, hoping for. Just kidding. I know there are Democrats who are pray to. Sure, who do they pray to? I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. But the Democrats have convinced themselves that, at least the Democrat establishment has convinced itself, that this impeachment mess is somehow going to change minds, is going to be a really useful tool. I think the backlash against this is going to be far, far more powerful than the benefit the Democrats have gotten from ramming this whole thing through. Also, just another note, people love to talk about the loss of manufacturing jobs and how we need more manufacturing jobs all the time. It depends. A large part of the loss of manufacturing jobs comes from, there's offshoring to be sure, but there's also automation. There's increased efficiency. You don't need, just think of this in very basic terms. You don't need 100 people all standing alongside an assembly line now and doing one little thing. You might have one or two people who are overseeing mechanized processes on that assembly line. And yes, perhaps they're paid well, but there aren't quite as many jobs. There's increased efficiency in this process. Also, we love to be told, we're always told about the glory days of unions and manufacturing jobs, but technology has been changing the nature of those jobs in a lot of cases. And honestly, I don't think that all human beings, look, some people, depends on what we mean by a manufacturing job, but any process that can be automated by machines in manufacturing is something that you'd have to ask the question, how great of a job would this really be for a person to do? I think it's overstated how much everybody wants to be on an assembly line plant. There are other jobs that people would like. People like to work virtually. They like to work remotely. They like to be engaging with other human beings. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of people think, oh, the service industry. I don't want to be. The service industry is sales, and the service industry is anything that's interacting with human beings and selling them on something. But I just think there's this glorifying of manufacturing jobs. Not that manufacturing jobs are great. If you like it, you like it, right? But we shouldn't be thinking that what we really need to do is bring back 10 million manufacturing jobs to America. Well, if they've been offshored, it's because they're not skilled labor positions, right? And if they're offshored and you actually have a leveling of the tariffs and some of the other trade barriers that are in place, well, then you say to yourself, how much are the people really going to get paid to do these things? Right? Is that, with China, they're cheating, but in other countries, we really think we're going to have a massive textile industry in this country again that displaces the textile industry in a lot of developing countries where people are just going to be paid less? There's some economic realities we have to deal with here. Anyway, I didn't mean to get too off the track on this one, but I like that he's hitting at the media. My other media thing for today, media story, is my old friend Charles Cook, who has the most fantastic British accent you've ever heard in your life, because it's somewhat laid back, but also so fancy at the same time. It's not quite like my friend Raheem, who's got a little more like he's from London. Raheem's got a little more. Charles Cook is a little more in here. It's like he's reading you a bedtime story. It's like, oh, and then Peter and Wendy went to Never Never Land, and there was a magic dog and a dragon, and he's kind of like Charles Cook could be a Harry Potter character, As Raheem is like the guy you want next to you in the football stadium. He's like, "Oi, you want to headbutt me?" They have a little bit of a different vibe. Raheem's accent's actually pretty fancy too. He doesn't really have a Cockney accent or anything. But Charles has written a great piece, and it's CNN is not a news network. And this is for the National Review magazine, and I really enjoyed this one. Let me give you a little bit of what Charles writes here, just because I love this one. But he makes the core argument he makes is what I've been telling you, or part of the argument he makes is what I've been telling you for a long time. Because people ask, how could you have worked there? If you think CNN's so terrible, why would you go there? And what I say to them is, CNN has changed. People forget MSNBC originally was if not a conservative network, a home for a lot of conservatives. The only network, this is kind of a fun fact, where Ann Coulter, who is fantastic, the only network where Ann Coulter is was ever a paid contributor was MSNBC, in fact. MSNBC, it's changed. These places can change over time. CNN used to be the closest thing you could point to a neutral cable news network. Now, that doesn't mean it was neutral ever. It was always center-left. It's always skewed liberal. No question about that. But it has gone from the network of, Schumer and Pelosi, if you will, which liberal, to the network of AOC and Rashida Tlaib and, Bernie Sanders. I mean, it's just way left in its politics. Now, it's still establishment, so they were Hillary over Bernie. Don't get me wrong on that. But I mean, in terms of how hard left CNN has become, it has changed. It has changed in recent years. Here's what Charles writes. When Think Progress announced that it was going out of business, a few observers wondered aloud, why didn't anybody buy it? But why would they when we have CNN? He writes, as a child, I was aware of CNN in part because of its introductory bumper featured the sinister voice of Darth Vader, he means James Earl Jones, and in part because it was both the prototype and the stereotype of the 24-hour news channel. When things would happen, you'd say, turn on CNN. CNN was careful and self-consciously nonpartisan. At least it was keen for its viewers to believe it was. In short, it was what it says it was, a news network. It is no longer that. These days, CNN is a peculiar and unlovely hybrid of progressive propaganda outlet, oleaginous media apologist, sexless cultural scold, and frenzied Donald Trump stalker blog. When news breaks, it is no longer useful or appropriate to tell someone turn on CNN, because if he did, he would be as likely to be presented with a wall of advocacy and obsession as with the headlines of the hour. Today, CNN does not broadcast the news. It broadcasts what it wants you to think the news is. Wow. There you have it. There you have it. Troubling stuff, my friend. But the reality of what CNN has become, it is no longer a news network. It is not about advocacy. It's not about honesty. It is about advocacy. And I think it's long since time people recognize that. I think it's long since time people understand exactly what is going on here. We should have honesty in media. Now, I will say I disagree with Charles on one point, and this is an important one. He says CNN has become Fox. That is unfair. I think Charles is wrong on that point, and let me say why. The Fox News lineup, that is the one that bothers the libs so much, the evening lineup of hosts, all of those hosts are opinion hosts, the primetime hosts of Tucker, Sean, Laura. They are opinion hosts, and a lot of other shows are also opinion hosts, right? I mean, The Five is an opinion show. There's honesty in the presentation of that. You can agree or disagree. CNN lives a lie every day. They do not think Anderson Cooper. They do not think Jake Tapper. They do not think Don Lemon are opinion shows. They will not say they are opinion shows. This is a fundamental dishonesty, and it's preposterous that they still cling to this. So I disagree with Charles on that. It is not fair to say that CNN has become Fox because CNN lies. MSNBC and Fox are similar in that they're both known to be leaning certain directions with their opinion. That's why I say MSNBC, I have less. You notice I criticize it less as a foundational, fundamental issue of their fairness or lack thereof. I just think they're crazy and wrong about everything. But CNN is crazy and wrong and lies about what it is. That's different. Man, we are getting into the last part of the last show of the second decade of the 21st century of the Buck Sexton Show. This is momentous stuff here. I mean, I'm hoping producer Mark doesn't get a little weepy. I don't know. When was the last time producer Mark got weepy? You probably
at my wedding.
Oh, really?
A little bit. A bunch of people said that they caught me.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Wedding's acceptable. I was gonna say you probably wedding, funeral, and if you watch a movie where something bad happens to a beloved pet, right? That's when it's okay to cry. No,
I don't think I've ever cried at a movie.
Never seen Old Yeller?
No.
Man, that's something we got to remedy. What about at the end of Lady and the Tramp when you think Tramp is going to die after he kills the rat?
Maybe I was a kid and I probably cried.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but that's acceptable. Sure. Real men cry when bad things happen to beloved canine companions.
Yes.
See?
Maybe when a child is born.
I wouldn't know about that. But
I wouldn't either, but I would imagine that's a very emotional moment.
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah.